Okay, everybody. On behalf of Radical Women, welcome to our 2025 gathering in honour of the Stonewall riots. Most years, we host something to mark this pivotal anniversary. Last year, we marked the 55th anniversary by teaming up with our sister organisation, the Freedom Socialist Party, to pack out the venue at Thorne Harbour Health for a panel discussion which was called From Stonewall Rebellion to Assimilation and Pinkwashing. How did we get here and what will it take to win LGBTIQA+ liberation? Now, this year, we're very much focusing on why Radical Women is a passionate supporter of transgender liberation. Radical Women is an organisation open to women, cis and trans, as well as to non-binary people who agree with the Radical Women Manifesto. If you haven't read the manifesto yet, check it out. Our discussion this evening is focused on the theme, there can be no women's liberation without trans equality, an idea that would have been absolutely embraced by those on the front lines of the Stonewall riots. 56 years ago in New York's Greenwich Village, the protests, which we today refer to simply as Stonewall, erupted and rippled like a tsunami across the globe, sparking a militant gay liberation movement, which posed a very, very significant challenge to the status quo. There was gay organising before Stonewall. Homophile organisations, led by a very brave few, were politely asserting their rights. These pioneers were single issue and their quest was acceptance. But the events of June 1969 turbocharged and radicalised this movement, changing the mood to angry rage coupled with bold demands for liberation. The story of what happened at Stonewall is now legendary. The Butch Dykes, the trans people of colour, and the other downtrodden working class folks who drank at the Stonewall Inn were used to copping abuse. Police raids were routine and the harassment had become something to be endured. But on the 28th of June 1969, when the police raided yet again, the patrons of the Stonewall Inn rebelled and took to the streets for 3 nights, no less, to vent their rage and say no more. Shortly after, Gay Liberation, first an organisation and then a movement, was formed. What made Gay Lib so important was its revolutionary vision of complete liberation. The Stonewall riot was not the first time that bar patrons fought back. The Compton's Diner riot took place in August 1966, nearly 3 years before Stonewall. Now, cross-dressing at that time was illegal in San Francisco and harassment of gender-diverse people was rife. Jean Compton's Diner in the Tenderloin district was a really significant hangout for gender-diverse young queer folk. When new management took over, they wanted to change the clientele and they used security guards and cops to harass people. And this sparked a riot which won important changes. The anti-cross-dressing laws were changed and people could get ID cards in their affirmed gender. The events at Compton's and Stonewall took place in the context of the 60s. The civil rights movement had exploded The anti-Vietnam War movement was in full swing, and women were demanding an end to the oppressive patriarchy through women's lib. Hurrah! Young people were being radicalised, and everywhere there was a sense of possibility that a new world was possible. It was just a matter of fighting for it, and queers, of course, were hardly immune. Lucian Truscott, a journalist with the Village Voice, who reported on the rebellion, described these momentous events as the Rosa Parks moment, the time that gay people stood up and said no. This is a very apt description, given the key leadership role played by trans women of colour in sparking the resistance. Amongst those prominent at Stonewall were Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. Both were anything but single-issue activists. Marsha and Sylvia described themselves as revolutionaries. Marsha, a black woman, was a trailblazer who fought tirelessly for the rights of marginalised communities, including queers, people of colour, and people living with HIV/AIDS. To quote Marsha, "There is no pride for some of us without liberation for all of us." And she also understood the importance of leadership, saying that history isn't something you look back at and say it was inevitable. It happens because people make decisions. Sylvia Rivera's views are well documented, as she was widely interviewed in the years leading up to her death in 2002. She was involved in the Black Liberation Movement and the anti-Vietnam War movement before Stonewall, and exemplifies why the most oppressed can be such crucial leaders. In one interview, she reflected, "You get tired of just being pushed around." In one of her many speeches, she declared, "The only reason they tolerate the transgender community in some of these movements was because we were gung-ho, we were frontliners. We didn't take no shit from nobody. We had nothing to lose." Sylvia said many times that the Stonewall riots felt revolutionary. "I was a radical, a revolutionist, and I'm still a revolutionist. I'm glad I was in the Stonewall riots. I thought, my God, the revolution's here. The revolution is finally here." Now, this rebel spirit of Stonewall rippled outwards, having a massive impact in Australia, where gay liberation blasted onto the scene. But half a century later, it's clear that we haven't finished the job, that the threat of a right-wing backlash is all too real. Transgender folks are being demonised by the far right in both Trump's America and here in Australia, where access to life-saving, gender-affirming healthcare, such as puberty blockers, is ever more difficult. Radical Women has proudly participated in Transgender Day of Remembrance events in November to stand up to trans misogyny, and we take part in Transgender Day of Visibility protests on the 31st of March, including this year, where we joined with others and marched through Melbourne chanting, "HRT, HRT, over the counter and for free." While many of those at Stonewall wanted complete liberation, over time, the bulk of the movement lost its radical edge. It was tamed as corporations invested big dollars in annual pride marches, toning down the politics and profiteering from rainbow merchandising. But today, in Trump's America, where the far right is demonising diversity, equity and inclusion, these corporations stand exposed as fair weather friends as they pull their funding from the movement they once profited from. I highly recommend the current issue of the Freedom Socialist newspaper, which has a great article about this trend. So today, the grassroots of the movement is very much radicalising again. Trans and rainbow flags are very prominent on the streets, symbolising LGBTIQA+ leadership in the resistance to Trump's agenda. 21st century trans and queer youth increasingly appreciate that, brilliant as Stonewall was, it will take more than a riot. We have great T-shirts on sale at Solidarity Salon with the slogan, "Stonewall was a riot, now we need a revolution." And indeed we do. The 60s generation had a great, great vision, but they didn't topple capitalism. It remains our task to do this and to finish what they started. Radical Women, your hosts this evening, was formed in this era. We formed in 1967, 2 years before Stonewall, and Radical Women dived into gay liberation from the get-go because we are a serious revolutionary women's leadership organisation. So if you want to finish the revolutionary fight that Marsha, Sylvia, and every other anti-capitalist rainbow rebel of that Stonewall generation was fighting for, we would love to talk membership with you. Long live the spirit of Stonewall. Liberation, nothing less.